When you hear of responsive teaching, what do you equate it to? What measures do you believe you need to take in order to implement responsive teaching? With many pedagogical practices, there are misconceptions. Teachers who are willing to make the progressive changes to their toolkit want to feel it is going to be beneficial. There is enough evidence to support the impact and influence of responsive teaching and learning, both short-term and long-term. However, there are equally evidence that seems to show that it does not have the impact and lasting effect. Let's explore the misconceptions that hampers the success that could be achieved by responsive teaching and learning. Relevant responsive teaching and learning is considered as a source of short-term progress by some. With any strategy, for the actual impact to be evident, it is necessary to effectively incorporate it in teaching and learning. Where there are misconceptions, this hampers the progress and could deem the initiative unproductive or not worth the time it takes to implement. The biggest problem observed when evaluating the impact of responsive teaching is the oversimplification by schools and professionals. When the different types of responsive teaching are considered, they are used interchangeably with non-instructional terminologies. That means different things to teaching and learning. It is important to recognize that responsive teaching is an instructional methodology used to leverage students' educational capital from their social and cultural backgrounds and their strengths and interests as it relates to their gender and their individuality. Educators tend to confuse multicultural education, social justice education, and culturally responsive teaching and learning. Multicultural education is the celebration of diversity and creating a sense of appreciation and harmony across different cultural groups. This does increase students' esteem, which positively impacts on their learning. This is not, however, the same as using cultural connections through modeling, instructions, resources, and assessment when teaching students formalized learning concepts. Implicit bias or implicit stereotypes refers to when individuals unconsciously have attitudes towards people or associate stereotypes with them. Educators feel that addressing cultural, social, or gender responsive teaching and learning is becoming aware of their implicit biases and stereotypes and addressing them. Although this helps to reform how educators view students and therefore cater for their general learning needs, it is not the same as responsive teaching using cultural, social, or gender responsive approaches because they do not cater for conceptualization and instructional methodologies. When teachers address their implicit biases and stereotypes, they tend to maintain their instructional styles and teaching resources as they were previously. Instead, they should be transforming their instructional approaches to leverage students' collectivism and their ability to process information in different ways. Unless removing implicit biases and stereotypes also transform instructional approaches, it does not have the desired impact that relevant responsive teaching seeks to have on educating young people. Educators are focusing on raising students' self-esteem and their mental wellness to support students with gaining self-regulation. Additionally, they are seeking to build positive relationships with students through restorative circles, and these are positive initiatives. These results show that students are becoming more confident and satisfied in themselves. However, achievement is still low. Using these approaches in conjunction with instructional approaches that utilizes students' social, cultural, gender, and preference capital boosts achievements because students are placed in a better position to buy into learning. It enhances their abilities to make connections and consolidations that results in the transitions required for them to achieve greater outcomes. This improves the realization of equitable students' growth across all demographics. Some view responsive teaching and learning purely about choosing the right strategies. However, masterful educators would be aware that there is no one approach to learning that will meet the needs of all the learners. There will always need to be a variety of approaches used to ensure that all students are exposed to equitable learning that allows students from all groups to excel and succeed. Teachers would benefit from having adequate planning, preparation, and assessment time to evaluate and consider who their students are beyond the data, to consider their strengths as teachers, their instructional strategies, and how these strategies could be effectively used in meeting the needs of students and result in sustained progress. One of the things teachers also need to ensure is that students are given enough feedback and equipped with the skills of becoming leaders of their own learning. No matter the depths of one's commitment to responsive teaching, we are all subject to misconceptions about its meaning and purpose. You are more likely to move beyond these misconceptions if you make a continual effort to examine your own beliefs, attitudes, and pedagogical relevance to meet the needs of the students in the classroom. Educators need to ensure more focus is on developing curriculum, instructional approaches, and assessment that facilitates academic growth and achievement for all students. Responsive teaching and learning needs to be understood as a pedagogical approach that leverages students' informal and non-formal knowledge and experiences to support their formal education. This is done primarily through instructional approaches, learning activities, and learning resources. Once this is conceived, educators meeting the needs and interests of all students will become a reality. How will you use relevant responsive teaching to enrich and enhance your students' learning? Which of these misconceptions could you most relate to? Which relevant responsive teaching approach are you most comfortable with embedding? How could you develop your capacity for the others?